Hey everybody, I'm Jordan Kilcoyne, and my issue group was the clean water access with a subtopic on the Flint water crisis. So some context on the crisis itself. It started in Flint, Michigan in 2014 when the city decided to switch its water source from the Detroit River to the Flint River. This was a very poor decision to make and was the cause of the entire crisis itself. And the government of both Flint and Michigan could have prevented this crisis from occurring by not switching the water source, properly testing the pipes, and being truthful with residents. So to begin with, the decision to switch from the piping treated water of the Detroit River to the Flint River would start the domino effect of the crisis. So at the time in 2013, actually, Flint was under a $25 million deficit, which was pretty much like they were just super in debt. So the state took control of all like the city operations, and along with this, then Governor Rick Snyder decided to switch their water source from the Detroit River to the Flint River in a cost-saving move, and he deemed it a cheaper alternative for the time being, since another waterway was being built from the Lake Huron to go down to Flint, but it was going to take a few years for it to be constructed, so they decided to just get their water from the Flint River while that construction was being done. But along with this, it was not a good idea, since the Flint River was home to like many factories dumping their landfill and stuff on it back in like the 1980s and such as General Motors. So then in addition to this, the inadequate testing and treatment of these water pipes caused widespread lead poisoning amongst residents. So here's an image of the some water samples from Flint at the time. As you see, like the waters get like cleared to the murkier one, and this is what residents had to deal with. They had to use this tap water to drink, take a shower with, wash their food with, all of that. And actually, that's just disgusting. And in an article titled What About Lead, published by EWG.org, quote, under the federal lead and copper rule, lead concentrations must be below 15 parts per billion, ppb, in 90% of households sampled. If this legal limit is exceeded, the water utility must apply measures to control lead leaching from water pipes, end quote. So also in 2014, a survey was taken of 252 houses in Flint, and 17% of those tested above the 15 ppb level, but the government did nothing despite these tests showing that many of these homes in Flint were already being affected with highly contaminated lead water. And from the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, section 34.1, titled Flint Water Crisis by Crystal Sardina Miko, she concluded that lead levels in children were monitored from 2013 to 2015, and she found that the incidence of elevated blood lead levels doubled between those times. And she also concluded that there was an increase in the percentage of children with elevated blood lead levels after the water source change. So furthermore, government officials' failure to act and be honest led to a permanent distrust from the residents. This was pretty much like the last straw in the crisis. All this time, the government just kept downplaying the severity of the situation. They kept overlooking. They pretty much just didn't care about the people in Flint, just because it was historically known as like a kind of like a poor town, city in Michigan. So the government officials there were officials that were actually charged for several different criminal charges, such as the head health director of Michigan. He was charged for involuntary manslaughter because a man, he didn't die from lead poisoning, but he died from another disease called Legiern's disease, which is kind of like pneumonia. And he pretty much, he was like caught on tape saying that if they die, they die. So like this just coupled with the other government officials just not even doing anything in the time of crisis until it became too late, just made the residents just stop trusting and believing in the government. So to conclude, the government of both Flint and Michigan could have prevented the entire crisis from occurring by 1, not switching the water source, 2, properly testing the pipes for lead and other contaminants, and being truthful with residents. And my call to action to everybody is, although the crisis now is practically over, the effects of the tainted water are lifelong for many people in Flint. Children will be born with, they will progress through life with cognitive disabilities. People will also suffer from other lead poisoning factors. And to help resolve this situation the best we can, I call for all government officials that downplayed and ignored the crisis before it was too late to face criminal charges or resign from their positions due to the disservice they committed to the people that they are supposed to protect. Thank you.